So I've always wanted to make games, and I was always stuck between which engine to choose: Unity, Godot, Unreal, or GameMaker. So, being an independent software developer, I don't have a big team. I'm just a solo guy who wants to make games. So 2D is the way to go for me. 3D becomes a little complicated because we are working on different aspects. There's a Z angle, Z axis. And the moment the Z axis actually comes in, it brings in a whole different league of complications. So the engine which I actually went for is GameMaker. I know Godot is there, but if I'm learning, I think GameMaker is a good starting point to make games. Godot, it's nice, it's super awesome, but the way signals work and the way you have nodes and stuff, it just adds a little bit of complications, which if you can get a hang of is pretty nice. So we've got GameMaker out here. We made a slight edit in the settings. We enabled code editor 2. Yeah, so code editor 2 beta, we've enabled this. So this gives us a nice uh, continuous view of events where we can actually write our code. And I have set up a small base project out here where we have a background layer, an instance layer, and a couple of sprites. So we have I think the missile sprites. We're gonna have build up a small space shooter. These are the missiles. If you look at the ship which is actually working, that's the ship. And these are the obstacles which we're going to use. So these are basically meteors. And yeah, so we also have some backgrounds out here like a BG1, and there's a meteors, and there's some planets and stars which we are going to quickly go ahead and set up. I think for this video, let's just go ahead and set up the basic environment and have the player moving left, right, up, down. I think that will be a good point, like good starting point for us for our game. So we have a background out here which is currently black in color. We're not going to do anything with this. We're going to keep it black. So we're just going to add a new background layer out here, and we just make it background 1, and we take a sprite out here, click on it and drag it, and we place a sprite out here. That adds our background layer. If you just now run the game, we have the background layer showing, but it's pretty idle, it's pretty boring right now. So, and for reference, I'm also going to add an asset layer. Asset layer is basically somewhere you can actually drag sprites and directly place it. So you don't need to create an object, because in GameMaker most of the things are an object if you want to add some logic into it. But since right now we're adding logic into our sprite, like the player right now, we just wanted to get a feel of how the game is going to look. We're just going to use an asset layer and place the asset out here. That's just for reference. Now we actually just run the game. We are seeing that the background is not moving. The player is, yeah, it's animating. It's an animated sprite which we've got there, but that's about it. It's pretty boring right now. So how do we actually make it a little bit more interesting? So we actually add a little bit of parallax effect. So you have this y speed. Y speed is basically, y is the top down axis and x is the left right axis. So y axis, we say we want to go, we set up 5. So every frame the y is going to move by 5 pixels. So let's quickly go ahead and check it out. So at this point you can see that, yeah, the background does move, but it's actually moving pretty fast. You don't want it to move that fast. You want to move a little bit slower. And there was another problem. If you had noticed that after some time the image actually went away and we had the black background showing up, which is this background. If I just change the color of this to say something a little bit more drastic. So now if you run the game, you can actually see that the background just goes away. It actually does scroll, but then you have the background 1 showing up, because the background showing up in the background 1 layer is basically moving down at the speed of 5 pixels per frame. So to do that, we need to enable vertical tiles. Once we do that, we have the background going infinitely. So that's something that's one thing sorted. We want to just duplicate this a bit. So yeah, you just want to create another layer, right? And command duplicate on Mac, and I think Control D on Windows. We duplicate 1, we call it 2, we call it 3, and we call it 4. So basically at this point we're just going to not show these ones, because it's going to have a black background showing up, which is going to override our background which we actually put. So on the background too, we are going to use something else. I think we have a meteor image out here. That's going to be our background. We're going to have the same too. We're going to just reduce it because we want to go a little bit slower. 1.7 would be a good place to keep it. And I think rest we already have the y-axis enabled and we have the vertical tiles enabled. So if we run the game now, we're going to have some meteoroids going down, which is going to add a little bit of depth into the game. And then we have meteorites 3, we had some planets there. By the way, the assets which I'm using, I got this from online because I was mainly focusing on building the logic of the game and learning GameMaker and not bothering about the graphics and stuff. So okay, we did have the planets, but the planets, yeah, we have the planets not visible, so that's why it was not showing up. We added a planet background layer 3. It's at, I think our layer 2 is at 1.7, so we actually get this a little bit lower, 1.5. So it does actually work. It works a bit slower. You know what? I think the way I'm taking Palix the opposite way around because the background needs to work a bit slower. So this is going to be 1.2. It's going to move slow. We are gonna have background 2 work at 1.5 and background 3 work at 1.7. I think background 4 we can have working at 2. So, and we're going to add some stars there to make it a little bit. So basically the further away you see it's slower, the movement is slower. That should create the correct effect. I was going in the wrong direction, but we are all learning anyways. We all learn somewhere. So yeah, and now it actually gives a nice feel. The background, the last layer, which is the one with the greenish kind of a right side, that is the slowest layer, and the rest is a little bit faster. And we don't have the star showing up. We just forgot to make it visible out here. So yeah, we should have the star showing up now, and it looks pretty nice. So now the next thing I think you can notice is we cannot move left, right, or up, down with the ship because we have an asset here. Is this a sprite? Sprites have no logic, and that is not what we want. So we want to add some logic into the spaceship. So we should be able to move up, down, left, right. For that we have to create an object. We go right out here, click, create an object, or we can use the command O option, but I think right click is okay. So we call it obj underscore player, and a player needs a sprite. We actually give it the sprite, and that should make it a little bit more usable. So we drag it into the room and it's huge. So we scale it down. I have just tried it, so I think a 0.15. I did try to get the scale earlier, so I think 1.5 should be the scale which is meant to be used. If you now check the game, we have our object showing up. So why did we switch to an object? With object you can actually add logic to your asset, so it can behave differently, or the sprite image can change based on certain events. So if you click on this, we have got some events out here. You can use the create event, which is the first event which actually fires. So let's go to X scale. We're going to set this to 0.15. I'm just setting it to the same scale that I added out here in the room instance, just to keep everything steady. So even if I forget to set this, the code will still run and it's going to set it to 1.5. So the Y scale and the X scale would still be set to 1.5. This I'm doing it via code. Even if I delete this instance from here, place a new instance which looks huge, it's still going to be scaled at 0.15 because we have set this in the code itself. But I would still want to scale it down just for visual purposes, because I like to see the correct aspect ratio showing in the editor out here, so I can know where I'm placing it and it looks fine. So I can just zoom in a bit. That's our ship. Our ship is looking pretty fine, and we run the game. I think it should be working as way before. Now we cannot move left and right. That is something which we want to fix. So we've got to get our hands dirty a bit, and we've got a code. We need a couple of variables. So in GameMaker there are couple of ways of declaring variables. There are 3 types of variables. So we declare a variable which is move speed. We set it to 5. So if you are not putting anything before the move speed, the name, this is a variable which is only available to the instance. It's going to be available till the time we have the instance available. If you put global dot, this is available from any other object can reference this. So this can be maybe in a different object, and a different object can actually access this. So you can have a enemy which has this, but the player will still be able to access this variable. And we can have something like a where in front. I think, yeah, we have caps lock on. We have something like a where in front, where is basically is just available to that particular event or that particular frame. After that, it's gone. So basically, if you have a step event which actually works on every frame of the game, it would just be available for that particular frame, and then it's destroyed. It's actually good for memory cleaning. So you cannot have everything global, you cannot have everything instance level. You might want to declare a couple of things instance, like a event based, so you actually save on memory. Because in games, I think it's pretty easy to go out of memory, and if you're not mindful or if you're not optimizing beforehand, you could land up in a soup. So now it's our next thing is to move left and right. So we put a variable like left. We declare the variable left. Let's just first try to move left, and we want to do something if the left key is actually pressed and it's held down. We can have something, there's something called pressed. If we use this, we can say that the vk underscore left, and we can say that x is equal to left. So if you press it, it's going to be 1. So into move speed. If right now if I press it, it's going to be 1, or else it's going to be 0. So if you're not pressing it, it's going to be 0 into move speed, which is 0, and you're not going to move at all. So yeah, we're going to have a plus out here also, because every frame we are going to add something to the x. And if you are pressing it, we have a 1 out here. 1 into something it means that we're going to move at 5 pixels per frame. Just set that up. We hit left, and we are moving in the wrong direction for some reason, because yeah, we actually need to set it. We just moving left right now statically, so we have to put a minus there, not a plus. So right now the issue is I can move left. If I click on it, it's actually moving. If I press and hold it down, it doesn't move at all. That's because the pressed event just fires once when the item is actually pressed. So to make sure this fires every time, even if you are holding down a key, we need to use the keyword underscore check event. Now if we go ahead and keep it pressed, the plane should actually move. But now the thing is, we cannot move right, so we need to put some logic to move right. Easiest method is move right. You change this to right, and that's it. So if you just put a plus equal to, because right is basically if you're moving right, you add to the x. So right, we can move right, so that works. Now we need to move left and right both. So to do that, we can actually declare a variable, or hsp is equal to 0. This is going to be just going to track if you're moving left or right, and hsp is equal to right minus left. I think I always get confused out here. So basically it means that if you're pressing right, this is a 1, this is a 1. If you're pressing both the buttons, 1 minus 1 is 0, you're not moving at all. If you're pressing right, you're going to get a 1, positive 1. If you're pressing left, you're going to get a negative 1, positive 1, and this will actually change to hsp into move speed. So it's going to be a positive 1 into move speed, which is 5. If you're pressing right, so it's going to be like a positive 5. If you're pressing left, it's going to be a negative 5. So I just have to confirm if this is right minus left or left minus right. I'll just check it out. But the best way to do it is actually run the game. I think we are fine. So left right, we are moving. Left right, which actually works pretty nice. And if we actually hold it down, we're actually moving. So that is something. We're just going to move up down also, where up, same logic applies. We're just going to copy this and we're just going to paste it, change this to up, down and down. Give 2 seconds. Down. That's a down thing. Okay. I'm going to do one more thing since we're working on this. You also want to move with the keyboard press. If you're pressing the A key, so basically adding functionality to move with the WSAD keys also. So A key, we add that logic bit out here also.
Generate by AI.
Okay, so right is basically the D key, bottom is the this is the up, sorry, so it's the W, and this is the S. So we've got WSAD out here, and up is basically the V up and V down key. So if you press the left, right, up, down key, it's going to move left, right, up, down, or set the variables to 1. If you press A, D, W, S key, it's again going to set the left, right, up, down to a 1. So since we are now moving vertically, we need to move vertically, we're going to use a VSP variable, which is going to be VSP, and VSP is going to be down minus up. I think that's the way we put it, and we can just put the same code out here, y plus equal to VSP into the same move speed. Let's just try it out. So we can move down, we can move up, we can move up, we can move down, we can move left, we can move right. You can also use the WSAD keys. We can move, also move, since we are now allowed to move in X and Y axis together, you can also move in angles, which is like super cool at this point. So you've got the movement mechanism working. Now I think the biggest problem is if I move left, I'm actually going out of the screen. I can come back, but I can go out of the screen, and I can go down and I can go out of the screen. We don't want that to happen. We don't want that to happen at all. I don't want you to get lost in space. I don't want the player to get actually lost in space. So we need to restrict something. We can do something. We can say if x is less than equal to 0, then x is equal to 0. So x is basically the origin of an asset, or the origin of a sprite. So if I open this image out here, the origin of this is set at middle center. So if I just zoom in, okay, so yeah, somewhere out here around this is the origin out here. Okay, it should show up the origin out here, but basically if it's middle center, it's at the middle center of the, around this axis you have the center. So this is where the x and y of this ship is calculated from. So the middle, not this side. So the ship's left is not at the side because I've set it at middle center. If I set it at the top left, this is where the xy origin of this sprite would be. But since I'm setting it in middle center, it's towards the middle of the, like bang on in the middle of the sprite. So now if I just run this code, you'll actually see what's going to happen. It's going to get stuck towards the middle. Okay, if x, right, but we got to put an if there. It doesn't like it if I don't put an if. So yeah, so I get stuck, but I cannot move left, which that gets stopped. But I get stopped at, yeah, half of my plane is showing, half is gone out of the screen. I don't want that. So the best way to do that is we have collisions. We can use the sprite width, but sprite width can actually change. You can have a larger sprite, but the actual asset might have a smaller collision mask. So best thing would be to use a collision mask. So if you open this sprite out here and you check, you have a collision mask which is like a diamond, which I've already set. So this is our extreme left, this is our extreme right, this is our extreme bottom, and this is our extreme top. So if this is touching the edges of the screen, we can actually choose to stop the plane from moving. If I just go to a different image out here, you can see the sprite actually has a bigger image. The sprite is pretty large, like the destroying thing that has a pretty bigger, but the mask is still something we can actually use. So I'm not bothered to make this into a diamond. We kept it a square because at this point this is the destroy animation of the plane. So at this point the plane, we don't need collisions anymore. Plane is anyways destroyed. So we can go into the player script out here. So basically the collision left right can be found from a variable called bbox. Bbox left is the left, right is the right, top is the top axis, and y is the bottom coordinates. So we need to get the width of the bbox. Let's get the so the width of the mask. So say mask underscore width is equal to mask underscore width. You can actually say where is equal to, so a positive is the right. So bbox underscore right minus bbox underscore left, and let's also get the mask underscore height just in case, because later we would anyways need bbox. So basically as you go down in y, it's greater, so greater minus the lower value, bbox underscore bottom minus bbox underscore top. So that's our mask width. So at this point we can actually change this. So we can actually say if bbox underscore left, if we are traveling left, if the bbox underscore left is less than 0, because this is on a game, this is the 0. Anything like this line out here, this is 0, and is less than 0. 1 second. Is less than 0, then we should actually stop moving at all. We can actually say like, okay, x is equal to 0. We can say this. Let's just see how it actually works. We should still stop, but we see that jerk come in. Jerk is coming in because, as I said, the 0x is actually the origin, and origin is in the middle. So the best thing would be to actually set x equal to mask underscore width divided by 2. If you actually do that, let's see how does it actually work. X is equal to x plus, so x, and we want to move to the origin, the keep a little gap towards the left hand side. Let's just see how that actually works. Yeah, we actually stop bang on in the left. If I keep it pressed, it actually works, but if I keep it pressed, it doesn't move anymore. So that's our right part sorted, and the right would be like pretty same. Bbox underscore right, right. Okay, bbox underscore right is greater than, now greater than. For right, I think the best thing to use is the room's width, because the room's width, this is a 0, and this is the room's width, and here again y is 0, and this is the room's height. This side is the room's height. So bbox underscore right is greater than room underscore width. I don't know why the colors are not coming right, but I seem to have not done a typing mistake. If this is equal to bbox underscore right is greater than room underscore width, then x is equal to minus. We're going to move the plane back, because if you go right and we go to 0, the plane is going to move. If I just not set anything, bbox is equal to, say I just put it as room underscore width. I don't know what happened to the intelligence there, but let's see if there's any error by building. If I move it right now, it doesn't stop anyway, so something we have messed up there. So if the bbox underscore right is greater than room underscore width, then x is going to room underscore width. Why is this not liking it? Okay, let's just, there's always a, if you get stuck somewhere, show underscore debug. I don't know why the colors are not coming. I think that's not sure why the colors. That's a weird kind of a behavior. Okay, let me sort of close this one. Yeah, just close project. Reopen this. Okay, seems it was not trying to save anything. That was strange. So yeah, I think some kind of an issue with GameMaker. It was not saving things. Bbox underscore right is greater than room underscore width. So yeah, if you are using some software, you'll always have bug, which is okay. Just restart it. I reloaded the project and it worked. So no harm done. X is equal to say room width. So we're gonna have it's gonna move towards the right, but it's gonna go move to its origin and get stuck there. So the moment the B-box, the edge of the spaceship touched the room width, it actually moves right to the right. It was actually pushed to the right, and we still need to make the adjustment for the mask width. So we're gonna bring it a little back. So we're gonna bring it back by subtracting the mask width by 2. If you do that, we are gonna have it's like snuck right to the edges. So if I go right, I cannot go out. If I go left, I cannot go out, which is like super awesome. But still, we can go down. We need to fix that. And it's pretty similar kind of logic at this point if you have coordinate. So like it's pretty same. So bottom is basically positive. So it's the room height. We actually have it as room underscore height, and b box underscore bottom is greater than room underscore height. Is going to be room underscore height. Instead of mask width, we're going to use the mask height by 2. So basically dividing the mask height by 2 and adding the adjustment there. And at this point, we should not be able to leave the room. If you go down, we just left the room. Why does it happen? Why does it happen? It's the x-axis. We need to set it as a y-axis. I'm so sorry. So yeah, it means we need to set the y-axis. I was setting the x-axis and it was like, oh my god, it actually pushed it way out the room. So yeah, we are going down. But there's still some bugs out here. Bottom is greater than room height. Y is equal to room height minus mask height. And we have a slight bug out here. It's going to be minus instead of an equal to out here. So I think that was the bug. Yeah, so now we can not go down, we can not go right, we can fly up, and we can actually go to the top. And yeah, so the top, if you want to restrict it, we can do the same thing as this one. I think this one would be a better fit to copy. So we restrict the top if bbox underscore top is less than equal to, it is already there, but I don't know why you did it, but yeah, it's this thing. Then and we know our last mistake, so we learn from our mistakes. We set it out to the y axis, not the x axis. And yeah, I think if you go to the top now, we should not be able to move out of the screen. That works. That works absolutely awesome. But there's still some logic. I think this would also be height. So it did work, but there's a bug which I can actually see if I don't fix it, because it did go a little bit to the top. It did go inside the screen. Yeah, now we are right now hitting the edges of the screen. Which is absolutely what we want. So now we can actually travel right to the top, but I don't want the player to go more than half the screen. So that is something which I want. So I think when we are checking the top, instead of doing it as this, we can actually add it the room underscore height divided by 2. So what does this? Sets the boundary to half the room. And out here also, since we are using 0, we need to set the value to room underscore, like half the room plus this. So at this point, we are restricting the player to not go beyond half the screen. So if I cannot go beyond the half screen right now, even if I press it, I can go down. I am stuck. If I go left, I am stuck. If I go right, I am blocked. So there's this kind of a limit which we are actually setting. And I think that's a good way to set the motion actually working. Thank you guys for watching. Next, I think we're going to tackle some bullets and stuff.